Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today, we bring you a story full of surprises and hidden angles that few people know about. Don't leave just yet. Just when you think you've figured it all out, there are fascinating and meaningful details waiting for you at the end of the video. Let's explore together and uncover the special message this video has for you. Are you ready? Let's get started. The extraordinary city of Venice, often called the Queen of the Adriatic, stands as a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Beneath the elegant facades of its iconic domes and meandering canals lies the dramatic history of a thousand-year empire, a maritime republic, and formidable naval power. Yet, Venice's origins were humble and unlikely. During the height of the Roman Empire, the lagoons along the Adriatic coast were home to small fishing communities. However, in the 5th century AD, the collapse of the Western Roman Empire under the pressure of invading barbarian tribes transformed the region. As Italy became a battleground for Huns, Goths, Eastern Romans, and Lombards, many sought refuge within the safety of the lagoons. In 726, these refugees elected Orso as their leader, the first doge in an unbroken lineage of 117 who would govern Venice over the next millennium. For nearly 200 years, much of Italy remained under the rule of the resurgent Eastern Roman Byzantine Empire. Its Italian province, the Exarchate of Ravenna, fell to the Lombards in 751, but Venice endured, safeguarded by its lagoons. Responding to the Pope's plea, Charlemagne and the Franks crushed the Lombards, but they, too, failed to conquer Venice. According to legend, Charlemagne's son, Pepin, king of Italy, succumbed to a fever in the marshlands during an attempted assault on the city. In the following decades, Venice asserted its independence from Byzantine control. Thanks to its strategic location, the city flourished as a vital trading hub between Europe and the East. Venetian merchants exchanged Italian grain and wine for spices and silk in Constantinople, selling these prized goods across Western Europe. Above all, the salt trade, critical for food preservation in the medieval world, was the cornerstone of Venice's early success. Venetians even declared salt to be il vero fondamento del nostro Stato, the true foundation of their state. In 828, two Venetian merchants smuggled what they claimed to be the relics of Saint Mark from Alexandria, securing greater prestige for their city. These relics were enshrined in the newly constructed Basilica di San Marco. Though the original basilica was destroyed by fire in 976, the current cathedral, consecrated in 1094, remains a symbol of Venice's enduring legacy. Saint Mark became the city's patron saint, and his emblem, a winged lion, became the republic's symbol, adorning its standard. As Venetian trade routes expanded, pirates from the Balkans and North Africa posed constant threats. Venice responded by building a powerful navy, driving pirates from the seas, and fortifying strategic harbors along the Adriatic coast. By the year 1000, Venetian doges styled themselves as Dukes of Dalmatia, reflecting their dominion over the region. The Venetian galley became a hallmark of its naval might. Sleek ships powered by up to 150 oars and triangular lateen sails. Armed with battering rams and carrying crossbowmen, these vessels were also used to transport precious cargo, including spices, silks, and gems. In 1103, Venice began constructing the famed Arsenal, a state-owned shipyard that became one of Europe's largest industrial centers, employing 2,000 workers and pioneering assembly line techniques to produce hundreds of ships annually. Venice's naval power and lucrative trading agreements with Byzantine emperors established it as the preeminent commercial and military force in the Eastern Mediterranean. During the Crusades, Venice displayed its shrewd diplomacy and self-interest. In 1202, when the Fourth Crusade arrived in Venice seeking transport to Egypt, Doge Enrico Dandolo struck a deal. In exchange for financial support, he first directed the Crusaders to capture Zadar for Venice and later convinced them to attack Constantinople due to deteriorating Venetian-Byzantine relations. In 1204, the Crusaders sacked Constantinople, the greatest Christian city of its time, in a shocking act of plunder. Venice claimed its share of the spoils, most famously the 4 bronze horses from the Hippodrome of Constantinople, which were brought back to adorn St. Mark's Basilica. The Venetian Republic gained control of key territories, including islands in the Aegean, Crete, and the crucial ports of Modin and Coron, known as the Eyes of the Republic. This newfound empire brought Venice unparalleled wealth and influence, but also ignited fierce rivalries with other maritime powers, especially Genoa. For over a century, Venice and Genoa vied for dominance in the Eastern Mediterranean, their conflicts spanning the Levant, Sicily, the Aegean, the Black Sea, and the Adriatic. In 1379, a Genoese force nearly captured Venice itself, occupying Chioggia, just 15 miles away. But Venice, employing galleys equipped with gunpowder artillery, turned the tide and captured the Genoese fleet. The Peace of Turin in 1381 ended the conflict, though both city-states emerged exhausted. Unlike Genoa, which succumbed to internal divisions, Venice staged a remarkable recovery. Venice's resilience was rooted in its unique system of governance. While much of Western Europe was ruled by monarchs claiming divine right, Venice adopted a republican model inspired by classical antiquity. By the height of its power, however, the Venetian Republic, known as La Serenissima, was firmly controlled by its nobility. Only those listed in the Golden Book, the city's registry of noble families, could join the Great Council, which appointed all senior officials through a system of voting and drawing lots. This intricate structure of governance included the Senate, which handled legislative matters, and the Quarantia, which oversaw economic affairs. The Doge, though the symbolic head of state, wielded limited power by the 1400s. Nonetheless, the Republic thrived, blending political harmony with commercial prowess, and solidifying Venice's legacy as a city unparalleled in its wealth, fame, and ingenuity. A city built on marble foundations and the unity of its citizens. The Council of Ten, entrusted with detecting and neutralizing subversion, operated within a political system so meticulously designed with checks and balances that significant change, whether beneficial or detrimental, seemed both unimaginable and unwelcome. Venetian diplomat and historian Gasparo Contarini famously described the city's constitution as an insuperable monument of wisdom and efficiency. Over time, Venice gained a reputation across Europe for having a government that embodied the 3 classical forms: democracy, oligarchy, and monarchy, blended in perfect harmony to ensure stability and social cohesion. This idealized vision, later known as the myth of Venice, ignored the Republic's history of attempted coups, pervasive corruption, and simmering social tensions. Yet, Venice undeniably achieved what few other states of the medieval and Renaissance eras managed: a durable, stable, and effective government. The Serenissima had another modern innovation: its diplomatic corps, renowned as the finest in Europe. Venetian ambassadors stationed in every major court and capital gathered intelligence, sending detailed reports back to the city in secret codes. Such advantages were essential, for Venice faced decades of bitter conflicts with neighboring Italian states and mounting challenges to its empire. You Venetians are gravely mistaken in disturbing the peace of other states instead of being content with the most splendid dominion in Italy, which you already possess. If you knew how universally you are hated, your hair would stand on end. You are alone, with all the world against you. Galeazzo Sforza for centuries, Venice had distanced itself from the territorial wars that consumed much of Italy, focusing instead on expanding and defending her maritime empire. However, the Genoese occupation of Chioggia in 1379 exposed the city's vulnerability. In 1404, Venice was attacked by her former allies, the Carrara family of Padua. The Republic responded by assembling a formidable army, ultimately defeating her enemies, annexing Padua, and conquering Verona. Further territorial gains in Friuli soon followed. Doge Francesco Foscari, whose 34-year tenure was the longest in Venetian history, was determined to secure Venice's position through territorial expansion. Using the Republic's vast wealth, he hired mercenaries, or condottieri, whose name derived from the Italian word condata, contract. These professional soldiers had dominated Italian warfare since the 14th century. Initially composed of foreigners, Catalans, Germans, Hungarians, and even Englishmen, by the 15th century, Italian captains commanded these bands. Though skilled, condottieri were notorious for their disloyalty, often switching sides for the highest bidder. Their armies, equally uncommitted, frequently turned battles into theatrical but bloodless skirmishes, more concerned with profit than slaughter. Venice's ambitions inevitably clashed, with the Duchy of Milan, the dominant power in northern Italy. A prolonged conflict erupted, with victories such as the Venetian triumph at Mac Claudio extending the Republic's territory westward to the River Adda. However, warfare continued to ravage northern Italy for decades. Renowned condottieri like Francesco Sforza and Bartolomeo Colleoni were immortalized in art, but their campaigns brought devastation to the region. Finally, the Peace of Lodi in 1454 secured Venice's Domini di Terraferma, mainland territories, complementing her Stato di Mar, maritime empire. A fragile peace ensued, lasting 40 years. This calm was shattered in 1494, when Charles VIII of France invaded Italy to press his claim to the Kingdom of Naples. His campaign briefly united traditional rivals like Venice and Milan in the League of Venice, led by the Borgia Pope Alexander VI. Although the League repelled Charles at Fornovo, it failed to prevent his retreat to France. Thus began the Italian Wars, a sprawling and brutal conflict that lasted 6 decades, with northern Italy as its primary battleground. Early unity among the Italian states quickly dissolved. Venice aligned with France against Milan to share in the spoils of war. This opportunism alarmed her neighbors, none more so than Pope Julius II. Known as the Warrior Pope, Julius II, who commissioned Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling and established the Swiss Guard, was determined to curb Venetian power. He declared Venice a threat to Italy's stability, issuing a papal decree excommunicating the entire republic and forming the League of Cambrai, a formidable coalition of European powers including France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire. In 1509, at the Battle of Agnadello, Venice suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of French forces. The Florentine diplomat Niccolò Machiavelli wrote that Venice had lost in one day what it had taken her 800 years to conquer. Yet, the Italian wars were infamous for their shifting alliances. Within a year, Pope Julius II allied with Venice against France. Later, Venice aligned with France once more, defeating the Pope's Swiss mercenaries at Marignano in 1515. By 1517, the Treaty of Noyon restored nearly all of Venice's lost territories. Through sharp diplomacy, flexibility, and a measure of fortune, Venice had navigated the storm of foreign aggression and emerged intact. It is the most triumphant city I have ever seen. Philippe de Comines, despite the turmoil of war, Venice remained a beacon of the Italian Renaissance. The 15th and 16th centuries were her golden age, home to masterful artists like Giovanni and Gentile Bellini, Vittore Carpaccio, Titian, and Tintoretto, as well as architects like Palladio. Scholars such as Francesco Barbaro exemplified the humanist movement, rediscovering and sharing the wisdom of ancient Greece and Rome. Venice also attracted the greatest European minds of the era. Erasmus of Rotterdam, the Dutch philosopher, and Galileo Galilei, the Italian astronomer, were among those who visited. Galileo even demonstrated his telescope for the Doge. Yet, Venetians were renowned as pragmatic doers rather than abstract thinkers. Their city became a hub of craftsmanship, producing Europe's finest glassware, textiles, and woodwork. Nowhere was Venice's blend of mercantile prowess and intellectual innovation more evident than in the printing industry. Doge Cristoforo Moro granted the city's first printing license in 1469. By the turn of the century, Venice was producing more books than Florence, Milan, Rome, and Naples combined, cementing her role as a center of culture, knowledge, and artistry. Venice was where Aldus Manutius revolutionized publishing by inventing the paperback, aiming to make the great works of classical Greece accessible to all. By the end of the 15th century, Venice had established itself as the printing capital of the world. This remarkable industry thrived against the breathtaking backdrop of a city often hailed as the most beautiful in the world. Venetian architects blended Renaissance ideals with the unique lagoon environment, creating timeless masterpieces such as the Grand Canal, the Rialto Bridge, and the Bridge of Sighs, where prisoners would take their last glimpse of Venice's splendor before descending into its grim cells. Along the Grand Canal stood the magnificent palaces of the city's powerful merchant families. Yet beneath its grandeur, Venetian commerce was fiercely competitive. Visitors were quick to note the city's cutthroat business practices. The German artist Albrecht Dürer once remarked that Venetian merchants were the most treacherous, lying, thieving scoundrels such as I never believed existed on earth. Even the formidable Ottoman Sultan Selim, too, warned the Venetian Republic, "Do not awake our terrible sword, for we shall wage the cruelest war against you. Trust not in your treasures, for we shall cause them to vanish like a torrent. Beware, lest you arouse our wrath." While Venetian culture flourished, her maritime empire faced an existential threat. In 1453, the Byzantine Empire fell to the Ottoman Turks, an empire Venice had ironically weakened during the Fourth Crusade. Initially, relations between Venice and the Ottomans remained pragmatic, with Venetian merchants continuing to trade in Constantinople under privileges inherited from Byzantine rule. However, Sultan Mehmed II, known as the Conqueror, soon turned his ambitions toward Venice's holdings. The Ottoman onslaught began swiftly, with the loss of Argos and Negroponte. Over the next 2 centuries, Venice struggled to defend her empire against the military might of the Turks. By 1500, Ottoman naval forces, led by skilled admirals like Hayreddin Barbarossa, overwhelmed Venice's fleet, and the Republic lost Madwan and Caron, the so-called eyes of the Republic. Successive doges could only watch as their eastern empire crumbled. In 1570, the Ottomans launched a campaign to seize Cyprus. After an 11-month siege, the Venetian garrison at Famagusta surrendered, but in a brutal violation of the terms, the commander, Marcantonio Bragadin, was flayed alive. This atrocity galvanized efforts to form a Christian alliance against the Ottomans. The Holy League, led by Venice and Spain, assembled a formidable fleet that faced the Ottomans at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. In the largest galley battle in history, the League secured a decisive victory, with Venice playing a key role in avenging Bragadin's death. Yet despite its fame, Lepanto did little to alter the balance of power in the Mediterranean. The Ottoman threat remained potent. Venetian ambassador Giovanni Segreto later warned Oliver Cromwell, "The dominion of Crete is Italy's outer defense, the gate through which the insidious Turk may penetrate to the great peril of Europe." This grim forecast proved prescient. Although a period of peace followed, Venice was a declining power. Her naval dominance had waned, and she lagged behind in shipbuilding technology. While Portuguese and Spanish explorers sailed caravels and carracks across the Atlantic to the Americas and Asia, Venice, reliant on older galleys, was left out of the lucrative new trade routes. For centuries, Venice's wealth had depended on eastern trade via the Byzantine and Ottoman empires. But with these routes now severed, the Republic's economic foundation eroded. Simultaneously, Venice endured devastating outbreaks of plague. The Black Death in 1348 was the first, but subsequent epidemics in 1575 and 1629 killed nearly a third of the population each time. The government took strict measures to curb infection, including isolation orders for new arrivals, who were required to remain aboard their ships for 40 days, a practice that gave rise to the term quarantine. Even so, exceptions were made for moments of cultural significance, such as the funeral of Venice's most celebrated artist, Titian. In 1645, the Ottomans launched an attack on Crete, Venice's last major overseas possession. The Republic rallied its resources, raising funds from the nobility and appealing to European monarchs for aid. Yet this time, Venice stood alone. Most of Crete quickly fell, but under the leadership of Francesco Morosini, who famously brought his cat in a battle. The port city of Candia resisted for an astounding 21 years, one of history's longest sieges. Meanwhile, An epic struggle raged across the Aegean Sea, where Venetian and Ottoman fleets fought as equals. Despite their valor, the Venetians ultimately could not save Crete. In 1669, with the city in ruins and thousands dead, Candia surrendered, ending 465 years of Venetian rule on the island. However, Venice soon found an opportunity for revenge. In 1683, the Ottomans suffered a catastrophic defeat at the gates of Vienna, marking the turning point in the Great Turkish War. Venice joined the counteroffensive, and Francesco Morosini led an expedition that recaptured key territories, including Lefkada and the Peloponnese, known as the Morea. Although Venice's power was fading, her resilience and cultural achievements ensured her place in history. From the Renaissance to her enduring struggle against formidable adversaries, Venice's legacy remains that of a city unmatched in its beauty, ingenuity, and determination. During the Venetian siege of Athens, a fateful moment occurred when one of their artillery shells struck the Parthenon, which the Ottomans had repurposed as a munitions depot. The resulting explosion devastated the 2,000-year-old temple, shattering columns and collapsing its ancient roof. This catastrophic event symbolized the fragility of Venice's brief resurgence in Greece. By 1714, the Ottoman Empire had recovered its strength and launched a swift campaign to reclaim the Morea, marking the beginning of the Seventh Ottoman-Venetian War. This conflict would be Venice's last, as the Republic's power in the Mediterranean had irrevocably waned. She is reduced to a passive existence. She has no more wars to sustain, no treaties to negotiate, no ambitions to fulfill. A mere spectator of events, she feigns disinterest to mask her incapacity to act. Count Paul during the 18th century saw Venice evolve into a cultural jewel, enchanting visitors with its canals, churches, operas, and art. Bereft of its empire, the city crystallized into a state of opulent stagnation. Rigid conservatism, stifled reform, and industry, commerce, and military innovation were neglected. When the French Revolutionary Wars brought turmoil to northern Italy, Venice, unable to defend itself, became an easy target. In 1796, a young and ambitious French general named Napoleon Bonaparte, leading a formidable army, demanded the Republic's unconditional surrender. Powerless to resist, the Doge and the Great Council conceded. French forces, assisted by Italian revolutionaries, dismantled the symbols of the Venetian Republic. Treasures such as the famed horses of St. Mark were crated and shipped to Paris. During the Feast of Liberty, the robes and insignia of the last Doge, along with the cherished Golden Book, were displayed in the Piazza San Marco before the Republic was formally dissolved. A millennium of Venetian independence came to an end. In 1797, Venice was awarded to Austria as part of the Treaty of Campo Formio, then later incorporated into Napoleon's Kingdom of Italy. Following his defeat, the city was returned to Austrian control as part of the Kingdom of Lombardy-Venetia. Yet the spirit of Venetian patriotism endured. In 1848, inspired by revolutionary fervor sweeping across Europe, Venetians rebelled against Austrian rule, proclaiming the short-lived Republic of San Marco. While Austria reasserted control over most of its Italian territories, Venice, aided by its maritime expertise, resisted valiantly. During the 17-month siege, Austria attempted the first aerial bombardment in history, using hot air balloons to drop bombs on the city, an innovation that yielded little success. Ultimately, Venice surrendered, returning to Austrian rule. This rebellion, however, kindled the flames of Italian nationalism and the dream of unification. These aspirations culminated in the Risorgimento of the 1860s, during which Venice joined the newly unified Kingdom of Italy. Though Venice's empire was long gone, the city's allure remained undiminished. It became a haven for artists, poets, and thinkers, inspiring the works of painters like Turner and Monet, and writers like Lord Byron and Ernest Hemingway. Its light and lagoon, steeped in romance, continued to captivate the imagination of the world. Today, Venice faces new challenges. mass tourism, and the existential threat of rising seas caused by climate change. Venetians have taken action where possible, successfully lobbying to redirect massive cruise ships and limit the size of tourist groups. Yet the city remains on the front lines of the global climate crisis, with fears that it could be submerged by the end of the century. This extraordinary city, once the center of a thousand-year maritime empire, now faces battles of a different kind. Its legacy of resilience and beauty serves as a reminder of its enduring spirit, even as it confronts an uncertain future. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. If you found this story interesting and meaningful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any exciting content coming up. Leave a comment to share your thoughts. We're eager to hear from you. See you in the upcoming videos with more unique and meaningful stories. Stay with us.